Hey everyone, Rob, Sigma 3 Survival School, and we're kind of on a tear for bird snares today, so I'm going to show you a different one. This is kind of a European bushcraft style bird snare that is easily hung in trees, and it's kind of a cool technique to know, especially if you can't find a convenient spot to build like a pole type snare like we did in some of our other videos. This is great for thickets that you know birds frequent or nesting, and basically all you need is a stick with a hook on one side of it and then just some kind of small green sapling that's fairly flexible. I'm specifically using willow. And the reason that we like bird snares is mainly because birds are really simple to get. They're not very smart, and we can use primitive cordage. Whereas with other types of small game, there's a very low likelihood with snares that you're going to get something, for the simple fact that most small game animals can bite through cordage. So right now we're going to start prepping this, and basically what's going to happen is we're going to make a split here and a split here, and then there's going to be a hoop off to one side of this. The first step that you're going to need to do after procuring your flexible stick and your hook stick is that you're going to need to make a split to put your hoop into. And basically, just going to take your knife, bang it in like that. You don't want to split it very far because you don't want it to run the whole length. You're going to do one there and kind of check the flexibility of your hoop, because basically how this is going to work is it's going to set in like that, actually like this. And so we're going to line up our split down here also. And birds, like I keep saying, there's a survival priorities timeline that we're always talking about. You always start with the small game and work your way up to the big game, because small game's always dumber. I mean, it's just plain and simple, with a few exceptions. Most of the time it's going to be far easier to get something small like this than it is to try to go after something like a possum or a raccoon or whatever. And we can get a whole lot of birds in a fairly short amount of time with techniques like this. I'll sharpen one side so that it slides in there easier. The thick side, just kind of make it a wedge. This other side's pretty skinny. Okay. Once you get this base piece wedged into your split, then you're going to take your knife and come down over here on the bent piece, and we're going to make another split. And essentially what that's going to be for is to wedge our bait into. Cut. So we do the same thing on this other end. Oop. Snapped on me, that's alright. If you have trouble getting your branch into your split, just jam your knife back into it so that it'll hold it open. And then pull your knife out, and that'll clamp it. Once you get your hoop created, the next step is to basically make your snare. And our split point is right here, and that's where we're going to hang our bait. And I won't put the bait in until we get out to our spot. And this is just a little bit of snare wire. And what I like to carry in my kit, and pretty much every kit that I have, is just a little bit of picture wire hanger at, you know, you can pick up at the hardware store. It's about $2 to $3 for about 25 feet of it. And the reason I like this stuff better than a lot of other like commercial type snares, for instance, is this stuff's really reusable. You can get it to flex and come back, whereas a lot of the aircraft cable and some of the nicer, you know, snares that you can get out there on websites and things like that, you get one use out of them, especially for like larger type game, whereas I can take larger game with this and then keep reusing it over and over and over. And because it's you know, a strand and it's got a bunch of little wires in it, I can separate out wires and, you know, set snares for smaller game, you know, depending on the size of the bird I'm going after, or small game or whatever. And kind of the trick is you want to position this snare to where they're going to have to stick their head in it. And they're going to land right here, and then I'm going to have the bait dangling down here. And then when they stick their head in it, it's just like every other snare. It closes around them and then they fall and dangle and die. So right now we're going to go out, find a good little location to hang this up, put our bait in, and show you how to finish it up. The way you want to set this up, you've got your snare here. And this can be done with primitive cordage, but you need to hang it from the top versus doing it up from the bottom like this, and it's much more difficult with primitive cordage. And I prefer primitive cordage over modern cordage for this because it's rougher and it will hold a form better. But essentially what the bird's going to do is he's going to fly in, most likely from this side, and then you've got the snare kind of positioned to where when he reaches his head or his body down to get the bait, that he's got to come through the snare. And a lot of birds have guard feathers on the back of their head that will catch this stuff. That's why it's effective. And once you found a good location, and right now we're set up kind of right along a waterway, thickets, basically anywhere that you find birds in abundance, anywhere they're feeding and there's none of this specific bait source around, is probably a good location to put it up at. And the interesting thing about this trap versus other traps is it's, you know, obviously we can hang it from a tree, and there's a lot of different places that we could set it up, to whereas other types of bird snares we couldn't set up like this. So get this set up in a good visual location. Make sure that you've got a good bait source, and you know, you can whip out one of these probably every, I'm going to say every 15 minutes. So you ought to be able to make 4 or 5 an hour pretty quickly. And set it up in the tree, get your bait situated, and then just leave it. And you want to check it fairly often. And basically the way it works is the bird flies up here on a perch, sticks his head through here, his guard feathers get caught, the snare closes around him, and then he should be here dangling, hopefully dead, when you get to him. Now we do like fresh meat, you know, it's not a bad thing if it's alive, but if they stay alive for too long, there's a higher likelihood that they might, you know, get away. This is just another technique you can throw into your survival toolbox. You know, get out there and try some of these bushcrafting methods. Like I said, birds are one of my favorite things to go after. You can catch a lot of them, and it's something that'll fill your gut, good protein, and you can eat the whole thing. You can essentially dry them out, pluck the feathers off, dry them out whole, just like you can rats. Just stick a rock into them, or not a rock, but a stick, to kind of wedge the rib cage open so that it'll air dry. And you can hang these birds up, you know, around your campsite, and then you can throw them into stews and things later and really boil them down and get that broth and that soup, and those good calories from them. As always, we appreciate your commentary and your viewership, and please get out there and share these videos with your friends, put them on forums, and spread this stuff all over the internet so that we can make America more self-reliant.